Hello everyone, how are you all? I hope you all are good. You all are doing very well. So, students, what the thing is that today we are going to start our new chapter, and the chapter name is separation of substances. Okay, that how we are doing, like how we are going to separate out the substances. But it's just that student, before learning about the separation technique, we must know that what type of the mixtures we are getting so that we are having the need to separate them out. Okay, so we'll see all such things in today's session. And before starting today's session, student, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Arushi Sharma, and I'm going to teach you this chapter, that is the separation of substances. And in that, you will be looking at very interesting things. So just watch this session with a great attention because it is having so many things which is also related to your higher classes. Okay, so now starting with the chapter. So as we can see here that, okay, so we are having something here. Oh, I'm so sorry. So we are having these two things, one and two. Now, if you're observing these two pictures, so you will be getting some idea that in one of the picture that something is getting soluble in water, but in the another picture something is not getting soluble in water. That means you will be able to find it out that okay, it is some kind of blue substance present here. Exactly. So students, in this chapter only we are going to study about some these type of mixtures only. Like if you can see here that in this picture this person is adding salt into water. Okay, and when the salt is getting dissolved in water, so we are not able to see that whether the salt has been added into it or any other substance is added into it because it is completely soluble in it. Fine, so this is a type of the mixture which we called as homogeneous mixture. I'm telling you the name. So right now that what's the name of it is, so it is the homogeneous mixture. But if you look at the second picture, so by looking at the second picture, you will be like, ma'am, we are adding something blue kind of substance and it is not getting dissolved into it. Because if after adding, like, even though I am able to see that, okay, something blue component is there. Fine. So that would be the heterogeneous type of mixture. So that's our student. We are going to see different type of mixture in this chapter and how the mixtures are getting formed and related to the other things as well. So we are going to find it out in this chapter. And the answer of homogeneous and heterogeneous you will be getting in the same session only. So when you can see that when the substance is getting completely dissolved in the water, so we are saying that we are not able to find it out that what we have added into it. So that we called as the homogeneous. And for the second one, it's just that it is very much visible to us that okay, we are adding something blue component into it. Fine. So now we'll check the answer of this two mixture in the session only. So students, these are the topics which we are going to cover up in today's session. So it's like pure substances element, classification of element. These are the classification of elements like metals, non-metals, metalloids. Then we are going to see that what are the compounds and what are the properties of compounds. Okay, then we'll come to the point that what are the mixture, and then we'll see what is the heterogeneous mixture and homogeneous mixture. Then we'll look out that what's the difference between the mixture and the compound, and then in the last we'll talk about solubility. You will say, ma'am, how many topics we are going to cover up in today's class? So don't worry, students, they all are very easy, and it's just that by listening carefully, you will be getting idea of each and everything. So just listen it very carefully. So starting with the very first topic, so it's about pure substances. Okay, student. So before starting with the pure substances, student, you will be having some idea about matter. That what's the matter is. Okay. So this chapter matter you will be getting in your class ninth as well. It is a chapter of ninth class for the chemistry subject. That means you are learning some basics right now. So what's the matter, student? Like if I ask you, you are sitting in a room and around yourself you will be having so many things. So what are those? Like what you consider them? So it's just that, student, matter is something which is having mass and occupied space. We call it as matter. So either if it is solid, liquid, or gases, everything is having their own mass and they occupy their space. For example, student, if I say that my pen is this and what's the mass of it? So you'll say, ma'am, around 10 gram or 20 gram. And if it like I'm keeping it on my hand, so it will occupying its space as well. So that we called as the matter. If I ask you one question that whether the air is considered as the matter or not, so you'll say, ma'am, air, I don't know, or I am not So yes, we were talking about matter. Now, student, as matter, you can see that it has been divided into two categories. So the two categories are here. It is the mixture, and you can see here it is the pure substance. So students, pure substance is something which is not having any kind of impurity. That means, student, it could not contain any other component in it. For example, student, if I say that the copper metal, that means, student, this copper metal will be having only copper and copper in it. There will be no any other component present in it. So such type of substances, student, which is having only one particular type of element, or only one type of component, so we call it as the pure substances. That means it will not contain any other substance in it, so we call it as pure substances. And students, what's the property of the pure substances? That a substance that cannot be physically separated out any further into other substance, that we call as the pure substances. You will be get this point after hearing about mixture. Okay, so students, for the pure substance, what we have observed, that it will be having only one particular type of component or one particular type of element in it. Fine. But student, if we talk about mixture, so mixture is something which is having the mix, like you can say it is made up by mixing two or three different type of components. For example, like if we talk about mixture, like we when we prepare tea, so for the preparation of tea, students, we require water, we require milk, we require tea leaves, exactly, and we require sugar as well. So that means, students, you have to mix so many components, then you are getting some kind of mixture that we called as tea. Fine. But in the pure substances, student, you can observe that it will contain only one type of component. So that's a student, pure substances are those type of substances which contain only one particular type of component, so that if you are separating them out, you will be not getting any other component from it. But if you do the same thing with the mixture, so you will be able to separate out many components, because it is having the mixture of two or more substances. Fine. So that is like tea is a very basic example which I have given you. But if we talk about in the terms of chemistry, so in that, the compound that the substance are mixed with together. For example, sugar solution. So in sugar solution, what we take water and we add some sugar into it, and that's how we get the mixture of it. And we can separate them out as the water and the sugar separately by using the evaporation method. Exactly, student. But if I ask you to separate out copper metal from copper, you will be saying, ma'am, it is copper only. How I'm going to separate out anything else if it is containing only one component in it? So that's how, student, matter is there. Matter is something which is having their space, which also having some mass, and that's how we are getting different things like solid, liquid, and gases. And this matter is divided into two categories. One is the mixture, and another one is the pure substance. Okay. Now, if we talk about pure substances, so pure substances is something which contain only one particular type of element or the component, but we'll see the its classification as well. So don't worry about it, and you will be not able to separate them out physically. But with the like in the case of the mixture, it is a mixture of two or three components, and you can separate them out. Fine. So that is mixture and the pure. It and like we were talking about elements, so it is a very simplest form of matter, and you will not able to separate out it by chemically or the physical properties. For example, as I've told you, copper is an element, and it's like that, student, when there is only copper metal, or if I take any iron box as well, so it will containing only and only iron, and if it is containing only and only iron or copper, so that's how, student, you will be not able to separate them out into different components. So that we called as the element. Now coming to the compounds. So compounds are something, students, when the elements combine together, when one or two elements combine together and form some type of compound, and it's just that they are chemically combined together. Oh, sorry. Actually, my tongue got slipped, so sorry for that. So compound is something, I'm repeating again. that when two or three elements combine together chemically and they form compound, that we called as the compound. That, for example, if we take water, so students, in water the formula is H2O. Okay, so that means, student, in this hydrogen and the oxygen, these two elements has been combined together and forming the water. And the main thing about the compound, student, is just that they are also pure substances, because if we talk about water, so it will be containing only and only H2O molecule. Other than that, we don't have any other type of water molecule. So that's how, student, compounds and elements are considered as the pure substances, because they are having only one particular type of component in it. H2O is also one particular type of component. So that's how, student, we can't separate them out physically or chemically. So that is the pure substances. Now, if we see, pure substances or the elements has been classified into three categories. So what are those three categories, students? So these three categories are, as we can see here, it is metals and non-metals and metalloids. So just give me a minute. So yes, you can see here, students, like if you see, first of all, metals. So if it is a piece of metal, let's say it is the iron. Iron is a metal, students. So what happened, that when iron is present here, and when you like you can see, when you are completing this circuit, so there is the flow of electricity, and when there is a flow of electricity, so this bulb is glowing. That means, students, metals are something, or metals are those elements which are the good conductor of electricity. Good conductor of electricity, because they are allowing the passage of the current through them. But if we see in the case of the non-metal, so you can see here that it is the ceramic, and it is a type of the non-metal. Okay, and when you are completing this circuit, you can see that this bulb is not glowing, not glowing. That is, electricity is blocked here, that when the current is passing through it, it will not allow the passage of current through it, so that the bulb can glow. And that's how, student, non-metals are something which are not good conductor of electricity, so we call them as the insulators. Fine. So what are the elements classification? If you see, metals, non-metals and metalloids. And metals are something which are the good conductors of the heat and electricity, both of them. Because if you see that, if you are having iron rod in your hand, and at the one end you will be having like candle, so what you will be noticing, that the other end will get heated as well. But in the case of the wood, if you do the same thing, it will not allow that, because wood is insulator for it. Even though, student, if you have noticed, if someone is getting electric shock, so we use plastic or wood, because they are made up of non-metals. Because that, what they will do, they will cut down the supply of current, and that's how we can save that person from the electric shock. So that is, the student, metals are something which are the good conductor of electricity and heat, whereas the non-metals are those type of elements which are not the good conductor of heat and electricity. Fine. So these two are metals and non-metals. But now, talking about the third category of the elements, that is the metalloids. So metalloid, students, are those which are having the some properties of metals and some properties of non-metals. That means, you can say, they are having the mixture of the properties of metals and as well as the non-metals. So you can see here, that is the silicon, boron, antimony and germanium. Okay, so what happens, student, when you add some impurity in them? When you add some impurity in it, impurity, for example, if it is silicon, and if in that, if you are adding aluminium, or if you are adding phosphorus into it, so because of this impurity addition, student, they also start behaving as the conductors. But they are not completely conductors, we call them as semiconductors. That means, they are having the ability to conduct electricity, but not as compared to the metals. Metals are very good conductor of electricity. Fine. So that's how, student, we have the classification of the elements, and that is the metals, non-metals and metalloids. So metals are something which are the good conductor of heat and electricity, because they are allowing the proper passage of the current, and there is the glowing of bulb. But in the case of the non-metal, student, it's like it will not allow the passage of the current and the bulb will not glow. That's how we are calling it as insulators. But as we have talked about metalloids, so metalloids are something which are having the property of both metals and non-metals. That is why when you add some impurities in it, so it will convert into the semiconductors and they will allow the passage of current through them. But as compared to the metals, they are not that much conductor. They do not show that much type of conductivity. Fine. So this is the classification of elements. Now moving towards the another topic, that is the compounds. As we have studied about the element that it will contain only one particular component, but now students, as we can see compounds. So compounds are those type of chemical substances, students, in which two or more elements combine together, and they will combine in such a way that they will form some chemical bond between them. And when they are forming the chemical bond between them, it's just that student they fixed in such a ratio that we can't alter that ratio. Okay, for example, H2O. So in that student, hydrogen and oxygen bind together with the help of the chemical bond. And you can see that in this compound, hydrogen is 2 and oxygen is 1. That means like whatever there will be the condition, like whether water is present in the ice form, liquid form or vapor form, the chemical formula of the water will remain same. That will be only H2O. That means two molecules of hydrogen bonded with the one oxygen, sorry, two hydrogen will bonded with the one oxygen. So that will be the fixed ratio. It is not going to be changed at any condition because they are chemically bonded each other and they are having their fixed ratio. And that's how we call it as compound, because it is the combination of two elements here. Now as we can see another example, that is the carbon dioxide. So in carbon dioxide, student, it is CO2. That means one will be the carbon and two will be the oxygen. So this is the ratio of carbon dioxide, that whenever you will be finding carbon dioxide formula, so it will be having only CO2. That means one carbon and two oxygen. That means with one carbon, two oxygen has been bonded, and it's just that they are present in the fixed ratio and we can't separate them out. So element, we have seen that we have three type of elements: metals, non-metals and metalloids. And when those elements combine together and bond with each other chemically and present in some fixed ratio, that we call as the compounds. Fine? Okay. So now we are going to study about the properties of compounds. So here that student, that elements are not easily separated by physical means. Obviously students, like H2O is there, so we can't separate them out physically. Or will you be able to separate them out, like if there is water in front of you and you are separating out hydrogen from it and oxygen from it? Exactly not, because we can't separate them out elements which are present in the compound physically. Okay, the compound has properties quite different from the elements as it is formed from. Exactly, students. For example, like H2O is formed from the hydrogen gas and the oxygen gas. And hydrogen is also gaseous in nature and oxygen is also gaseous in nature. But when they combine together, so they form H2O. And H2O is what, student? It is liquid. And definitely student, gases are having their own property and liquids are having their own property. So it's not like that, student, that whether the compound is forming from the elements, so it's not compulsory that the property of the elements is transferring to the compound as well, that the compound and the element both are having the same property. It's not like that. When the two elements are combining together, so it's just that they lost their properties, and at that point there will be the generation of some new properties, and that we called as the property, like, and then we call it as that there is a difference in their properties at that point. Okay. Now, the formula of a compound summarizes the whole number atomic ratio of what it is made up of. Like methane, CH4 is there, composed of one carbon atom combined with four hydrogen atoms. Obviously, students, that whenever we are studying the formula of any of the compounds, so we'll be getting the idea that okay, this compound will having how many atoms in it. For example, if we see hydrogen and oxygen for the H2O, so H2O, it will be indicating that it contains two hydrogen and one oxygen. That means in total it contains three elements in it. Exactly, student, by looking at the compound, or that we come to know that what's the exact atomic ratio here, that whether it is 2 is to 1 or 1 is to 2 or 1 is to 4, that means how many atoms are attached with one particular atom. Okay. The word formula can also apply to elements. Example, hydrogen, oxygen, ozone, and phosphorus. So we have given this name to these elements here. Okay, because hydrogen is also also what? It is also attaching with another hydrogen, oxygen attaching with another oxygen, phosphorus, like four phosphorus combined together. So that's how student compound is something in which elements combine together and they are having chemical bond between them, and it's just that they are having some fixed ratio which is not going to be changed physically, and that's how student they show some different properties. Okay, so that's the properties of the compounds. And now we have discussed about substances, pure substances. That means they will not contain any other type of component as the mixtures contain. And then we have seen that the elements are of the three types, that is the metals, non-metals, and metalloids. Then we have talked about compounds, and they are also having only one particular type of component. Like if we are talking about water, so water will contain only and only H2O molecule, not other than that, like H3O, H2O4. No, it will be having only H2O. So that's how they are also pure in nature. Now we'll talk about mixtures as we have done with the compounds. Now coming to the mixture. So mixture is something, student, when you are mixing two or three components into different ratio, like they don't have any fixed ratio. It depends on our condition, on our need, that how much requirement is there. For example, whenever we prepare tea, so it's like that some people like 1 spoon of sugar in it, some will like two, some will like half. So that's how it depends on our condition. So mixture is something in which we are adding two or three components in it, and it will not having any fixed ratio, and you can separate them out by using physical or the chemical method as well. So that we call as the mixtures. Okay, now students, we are having two type of mixtures, and what are those? One is the heterogeneous mixture and another one is the homogeneous mixture. We'll see that what exactly it is. But if you look at this picture, so what you will be observing, that this is one type of particle and this is second type of particle. Similarly here, student, it is one and it is two. So in the homogeneous picture, if you look at it carefully, so you will be finding that all of the components, if you consider it, so they are very regularly arranged, like one after another, one after another. So that's how they are regularly arranged. But in the heterogeneous, it's just that some of that they are not regularly arranged. They are very irregular in nature. That means homo means same, that they will be same throughout the condition, and hetero means different, that they will not having proper arrangement in it. So mixture is something in which you are mixing two or three components or more than that also, and it's just that you can separate them out physically or chemically method, and it's just that they are separated, like they are classified into two categories, that is the heterogeneous and homogeneous. Homogeneous, in which the substances, you can see that the components are arranged very regularly, they will be having some uniformity in that. Okay, they, because they are following some regular pattern, but for the heterogeneous they are non-uniform in nature. Okay, now we'll talk about homogeneous and heterogeneous mixture. So now in the homogeneous mixture, student, if we see that this person, that they have taken water in it, okay, so water is there. So water, in this water we are adding some salt. Okay, salt is added up. Now when you adding salt into it and when you stir it, so what will happen, that salt will get dissolved into water, and when salt is getting dissolved into water, student, so you will be not able to find out what the component you have added, what the component is added. So that's how, student, when you are mixing something in such a way that it is getting dissolved completely, and after complete dissolution you will not getting idea that what exactly you have added into it. So that's how, students, such mixtures are called as the homogeneous mixture, and these mixtures are uniform in nature. Uniform means, students, like throughout the condition it will be having only one phase, one phase. That means, student, whether we are having two cup phase, like water is the liquid phase, it present in the liquid phase, and the salt present in the solid phase. But when you are mixing these two and salt get dissolved in the water, so after that, student, we are having only liquid phase, that is the water. So that's a, student, homogeneous mixtures are those type of mixture that after the mixing up you will not get idea that what you have added into it exactly, and it will be uniform throughout the condition, and it's just that after mixing up you will be getting only one phase as we are getting here. Okay, so that is the homogeneous mixture. Now, if we talk about heterogeneous mixture, so heterogeneous mixture students are just vice versa of homogeneous. Like in the homogeneous, we are having the idea that, we are not getting the idea that, okay, after mixing up, where the salt has been gone because it is completely soluble in it. But as you can see here in this picture, that it is water and it is sand, water plus sand. So when you add sand into water, and if you allow that beaker to stand for some time before, like without disturbing it, so after some time, what you will be observing, that the layer of the sand will get settled at the bottom, and you can separate it out very easily. Even the homogeneous mixture are also separable. That means like sugar and water is there, so you can use evaporation method and the water get convert into vapors, and it's just that you will be getting sugar only. Similarly, students, in heterogeneous mixture, that what will happen when you are adding sand into water, so by using sedimentation and decantation process, you can separate them out because sediment will get settled down at the bottom, that sand, and you will be separating water from it by decantation process. But it's just that, student, in heterogeneous mixture, you will be having idea and it is visible to you. Visibility will be there. That means whatever you are adding it, as it is insoluble in nature into water, so it will get settled down at the bottom, and you will be having idea that, okay, I have added sand into it. Fine. And it will be having non-uniformity, because we can see that sand is not soluble in water, so you will be getting water separate and the sand will get separately. That's how. And in this condition, students, you will be having two phase or more than that also, because water and sand is not soluble in water, so sand will remain separate and water will remain separate. And sand will know that it present in the solid form and water is in liquid. And when we are getting these two phase, even after dissolving these two together, and we are getting the two separate phases, so that's how we get two phases in that. But in the homogeneous, we are getting only one phase. So this is the basic difference between these two. In homogeneous, we will not having any idea, and it's just that after dissolving, we will be getting only one phase, and we can separate it out by using the vaporization method, that is the evaporation. Okay. How? For example, that if it is the container and if it contains like sugar solution is there, sugar solution, and if you are heating it, okay, so water will convert into vapor, that the water convert into vapor form, and you will be left with sugar only, and here it is sugar. Okay. And similarly, students, like if you see for heterogeneous, like if it is the beaker, and in this beaker you are having some water, and if you are adding sand into it, so sand will get, you can see that settled at the bottom, and you will be having clear water over it, that is the clean water. Now what you can do, you can decant this water, clean water, into any other beaker, that is the decantation process. Decantation process. Fine, students. So that is the homogeneous mixture and the heterogeneous mixture. That means we are getting two type of mixture, and we both are separable in nature. And maybe, students, you will be having some another examples also. So don't worry, if you are having other examples, you can take them as well. So this is the mixtures. That means we are having two or three components mixed up together, and we can separate them out chemically and physically as well. So it's just that they are the two categories are there: heterogeneous mixture and homogeneous mixture. And it's just that for the homogeneous, we are having some kind of uniformity. One phase will be there. For heterogeneous, it's just that two phases are there, or more than that also, depending upon the components you have added into it. Fine. Now we'll see that what's the difference between mixture and compound. So students, in compounds, what we can see, that the elements are combining chemically and they are present in the fixed ratio. Okay, like if I talk about compound and if I talk about mixture. So in the compound, students, the elements are combining together, like two or more elements, and they are present in the fixed ratio. For example, H2O. But in the mixture, student, yes, we are adding substances, but it's just that, student, they are not having any fixed ratio, not fixed ratio. For example, student, like you are having one glass of water, so you can add into 1 spoon of sugar, you can add 2 spoon also. But if you again increase the water level, so you can add more sugar into it. So it's just that it's not having any fixed ratio, that how how much water will add how many, like how much of sugar. It's just that yes, it is having it, but when you increase the water level, so you can add more sugar into it. So that's how in mixture we don't get any fixed ratio for that. It's according to our wish. But for the compound, it is fixed. We can't alter it. Okay. And it's just that we can't separate them out physically. Not physically separable, whereas they are physically separable. That means you can separate them out. For example, students, like, okay, sugar solution will be there and you will be not like, you can't separate them out physically. But for example, student, when we are having large size of impurities, so we can separate them out also, like hand picking method you can use. Generally, students, what happened, like the rices we are getting from fields, so they contain some small stones them in it. So we separate those stones by picking them by using our hands. So that's how, student, we can separate them out such type of mixture physically as well. But for the compound, student, you can't separate them out physically. So that's the main difference between the mixture and compounds. That compounds are the substances which are formed with the help of the element, that yes, two or more elements combined together chemically, and it's just that they are present in the fixed ratio and we can't separate them out physically. But if we talk about mixture, so mixtures are those substances which are physically mixed together, and it's just that you can separate them out physically as well, and they don't have any fixed ratio. Fine. So that's the basic difference between mixture and compounds. Now, solubility. Because students, like we have already talked about mixture, and some substances are soluble, some substances are not soluble. So solubility is defined as the amount of a given substance that can be dissolved in a certain amount of solvent. For example, student, you can see here that these are the two beakers and both are containing same level of water. In one, you can see that the substance is soluble because you can see that it is spreading in all of the direction. But in this substance is not soluble because it is settling at the bottom. So some of the substances are soluble, some of the substances are that, yeah, we're talking about solubility, that it depends upon the type of the component we are having, that whether it is having the soluble component or insoluble component or partially soluble. So that defines its solubility. That means how much of the substance is getting dissolved in a particular amount of solvent, that we call as the solubility. That, for example, students, as we can take that, okay, this is the beaker, and in this beaker I'm taking 20 ml of water, let's say 20 ml of water. Now, student, that what's the ability or what's the capacity of sugar to get dissolved in this 20 ml? That, for example, if 5 gram of sugar is completely soluble in water, and it's just that after like over 5 gram you will be not able to dissolve the sugar in the water, then we can say that the 5 gram like this much of the sugar is completely soluble in the 20 ml of water, and this will be its solubility. So, the maximum amount of the given substance that can be dissolved in a certain amount of the solvent, that we call as the solubility, and it also depends upon the type of the substance, that whether we are having the soluble substance or the insoluble one or the partially soluble one. That means half of it is getting dissolved and half of it is not getting dissolved. So that's the condition. Fine, students. So this is solubility. Okay, so with that, we have discussed all of the topics of today's class. That means now you can see na, that you will be maybe worried about this thing, that ma'am, how we are going to cover up all of the topics. So these topics are very simple, students, and it's just that you have to listen them very carefully and you will be getting idea of each one of them. Okay, so with that, we have completed today's session. Now we are going to meet in next session. Till then, study well, watch the session carefully, and it's just that what I can say, mm, that if you are having any doubt after watching the video, any queries there, you can post your question on public or private forum of askIITians, and you will be getting answer from the expert side. And that's how we'll be completing the other part of this chapter into the next session. Fine, students. Thank you, and keep learning from askIITians.